The river that forgets its source will eventually dry up, a proverb that warns how ignoring the foundations of trust can lead to stagnation and loss. This wisdom feels especially fitting today as Nigeria's Senate convenes an emergency plenary session to revisit and potentially reverse its recent stance against making the electronic transmission of election results mandatory, a move that could restore confidence in our democratic processes ahead of the 2027 general elections. This na confirm street news, na wetin we hear with the report, but be sure say na confirm. Abeg, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and drop a comment to help us grow and bring you undiluted news. The development unfolded on February 10, 2026, when the Senate held a special sitting focused on Clause 60 of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. Senator Enyinnaya Abaribe, representing Abia South, tabled a motion urging that each senator cast an individual vote on whether electronic transmission of results should be made mandatory. This procedural step followed widespread criticism of the Senate's earlier decision during the third reading on February 4, which had rejected stricter provisions for real-time transmission from polling units. After heated debates and in response to mounting public pressure, the Senate adopted the motion to rescind its previous position on the clause. It then recommitted the affected section to the Committee of the Whole for fresh consideration and possible amendments. In the revised version, presiding officers are now required to transmit polling unit results, including accredited voter totals, to the INEC result viewing portal. However, where network or communication challenges prevent transmission, the manual form EC8A remains the primary document for collation and verification. This compromise aligns the process with INEC guidelines but stops short of the stricter real-time mandatory requirement passed by the House of Representatives. If developments like this that directly shape the future of our elections capture your attention and you want clear, timely analysis as the story evolves, please like this video right now, share your thoughts in the comments on whether this reversal goes far enough, and subscribe to the channel so you stay updated on the issues that will define Nigeria's democracy in the years ahead. To appreciate the significance of today's session, we must revisit the journey of electoral reform in Nigeria. The 2022 Electoral Act was celebrated for introducing electronic transmission as an option, aiming to reduce human interference and build public trust after decades of disputed polls marked by allegations of result tampering. Yet the 2023 elections exposed persistent challenges, delays in uploading results to the INEC portal, technical glitches, and disputes that fueled lengthy court battles and eroded confidence. Many observers, including civil society groups and international monitors, pointed to the discretionary nature of transmission as a key weakness. With 2027 approaching, pressure has mounted on the National Assembly to strengthen the law. The Senate's initial rejection of mandatory real-time transmission sparked outrage, protests at the National Assembly gates, and accusations that lawmakers were protecting the status quo rather than advancing transparency. Today's emergency session represents a direct response to that backlash, showing how sustained advocacy can force legislative reconsideration. Senator Abaribe's motion for individual voting on the issue was a pivotal moment, emphasizing personal accountability among lawmakers rather than block decisions that might obscure positions. Other senators engaged in robust debate, with some highlighting infrastructural limitations in rural areas as reasons for flexibility, while others argued that technology is now advanced enough to make real-time transmission feasible and essential for credible polls. The Senate President guided the proceedings, ensuring the rescission and recommitment passed, allowing the clause to be reopened. This procedural victory reopens the door for stronger language during harmonization talks with the House, where a more robust version already exists. The implications of this reversal are far-reaching. Politically, it demonstrates the Senate's responsiveness to public sentiment and opposition pressure, potentially easing tensions between the ruling party and critics who have accused it of weakening democratic safeguards. It could also strengthen the hand of reform advocates, including figures like Peter Obi, who recently led protests on the same issue. Socially, a credible transmission system would reassure millions of voters especially young people and first-time participants, that their voices truly count, reducing apathy and the risk of post-election unrest. Economically, restored faith in elections fosters stability, encouraging investment and growth in a nation where political uncertainty has often hampered progress. On the security front, transparent results can help de-escalate disputes that have sometimes led to violence in past cycles, promoting national cohesion.
Public reactions have been swift and largely positive but cautious. Many Nigerians, particularly supporters of opposition movements and civil society organizations like Yaga Africa, welcomed the emergency session as a step in the right direction, though some expressed concern that the adopted compromise still leaves room for manipulation when networks fail. Social media platforms filled with calls for the Senate to align fully with the House version during harmonization. Protesters gathered outside the National Assembly, maintaining peaceful pressure even as the session turned rowdy at times inside the chamber. On the other side, some lawmakers and ruling party voices defended the need for practicality, arguing that forcing transmission in areas with poor connectivity could create more problems than it solves. Legal experts have noted that while today's action reopens debate, the final outcome in the harmonized bill will determine whether Nigeria moves forward or retreats on electoral integrity. Looking ahead, the next critical phase is the harmonization process between the Senate and House versions of the bill. If the stronger mandatory real-time provisions prevail, it could mark a landmark improvement in Nigeria's electoral framework, setting a new standard for transparency and reducing litigation risks in 2027. However, if the compromise language remains, critics may continue advocacy through further protests, public campaigns, and possibly court challenges. For the Independent National Electoral Commission, clearer guidelines would aid preparations, while for ordinary citizens, the ultimate test will be whether the 2027 polls deliver results that match the will of the people without widespread disputes. The coming days and weeks will reveal whether this emergency session was a genuine turning point or merely a temporary concession to public outcry. As we conclude this report, on a day when the Senate responded to the voice of the people by reopening a vital clause in our electoral law, I encourage you to join the conversation in the comments. Do you think today's reversal will lead to truly mandatory electronic transmission, and how important is this for 2027? If this analysis has clarified the stakes for you, like the video, subscribe to the channel for ongoing coverage of Nigeria's democratic journey, and turn on notifications so you're always informed when key developments arise. Your participation helps keep our institutions accountable and our democracy vibrant.